The number one question I get asked is, what are the requirements to teach in China? So let me break it down for you. Hi, my name is Megan. I've been teaching in China for almost 15 years, and I make videos all about moving to China, understanding different cultures, and just teaching English in general, helping you become the best teacher that you can be. Now, I have made videos before on this topic. For example, you can watch my comprehensive guide to moving to China, but I wanted to make a dedicated video just talking about the legal requirements in order to teach English in China. So let's jump in. First, I'm going to talk about what you need. Then I'm going to talk about what you don't need. And along the way, I'm going to share some tips and tricks and also talk about some of the gray areas or the confusing parts to these requirements. First, you're going to need an authenticated bachelor's degree. Now, some places will mention and specify on their job posting that they're talking about a 4 years bachelor's degree, just because it's a little bit confusing in different areas of the world. They have different requirements, but it really doesn't matter how long it took you to complete your degree. As long as you have a bachelor's degree, you're good to go. Now, you do need to authenticate that degree. There are a lot of companies that will help you do this. If you want me to make a whole video about the authentication process, I definitely can, because this is a newer thing. In the past, when I first moved to China, degrees did not need to be authenticated, but now they do. You just have to go through a process of basically confirming that your degree is real. That's all that essentially means. If you'd like me to make a video on that, leave it in the comments down below and I definitely can. Now, a lot of people would assume that you need to have your bachelor's degree in something related to teaching, maybe something about English or maybe something about education. That's not the case. You can have your bachelor's degree in literally anything. It can be in computer science, it can be in technology, it can be literally anything, doesn't matter. You can have a bachelor's degree in painting or musical theater. It's okay. As long as you have a bachelor's degree, you're good to go for that first requirement. Next, you're going to need a 120-hour TEFL or TESOL certificate. Does it matter if it's TEFL or TESOL? Not really. They're considered equivalent. People are really not going to care. However, if you're searching information online, you'll often find that people just say TEFL, but actually it can be TEFL or TESOL. Both of them are okay, but the thing you need to pay attention to is it does need to be 120 hours. These certificates are awarded according to the hours of the course that you completed. For example, a 60-hour course is easier and a little bit simpler than a 120-hour course, and that one's a little bit simpler than a 240-hour course, for example. For example, when I first moved to China, they didn't really care that much about how many hours you had put in for your TEFL, but after they changed the requirements, it is a necessary thing to have 120 hours. Now, maybe you're looking at different options, different requirements, and you're thinking, oh, well, I want to make myself more marketable, so let me go for the 240 hour. I'm going to be really straight with you. It doesn't matter. They don't care. Think of all of these requirements as like a checklist. As people are looking through your resumes, as they're preparing for interviews, they're just gonna go check, 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 check. Okay, you have these legal working requirements. The things that I'm going to talk about today are not really the things that are going to give you a leg up or give you a benefit or a bonus in the interview. If you're looking at TEFL programs and you're thinking, oh, if I do this one, that's 120 hours, or if I do this one, that's over 120 hours, maybe this 241 will give me a better deal. It's not necessary. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, does it matter which TEFL company you use to get your TEFL certificate? To be honest, not really. Just go online, choose any of them. They're all very similar. And in my opinion, the TEFL certificate is just your introduction to teaching ESL or EFL. It's not going to fully equip you with everything that you need to know. If you're looking for something like that, check out the videos on my channel, coming from an experienced teacher who can actually give you advice about what's really happening inside the classroom. But the one that I used and I really enjoyed, I had a fantastic experience with them, was called ITTT. I can leave it linked down below. There's also another one that I've looked into called the World TEFL Institute. I'm genuinely thinking about just doing another certificate with them just to see what it's like, because the program looks really good and it's really cost effective as well. So I'll leave that one linked down below as well. But to be honest, any of them will be okay. Like I said, this is just a check mark system. As long as you have a 120-hour TEFL, you're good to go and we can move on to the next one. That's really how employers are thinking, and that's how people who are approving your visa will think as well. Do you have it? Yes. Move on to the next one. The third thing you might see when you're looking at job listings or looking into the visa process is you might see 2 years of teaching experience mentioned again and again and again. 2 years of teaching experience is preferred but not required. Again, preferred but not required. This is something that I didn't have when I first came to China, so I was able to do it. A lot of people are able to do it with 0 teaching experience. But once you have those 2 years of teaching experience and you want to continue being in China, you can use that as a strategic move to maybe move it to a new city or a new school or kind of negotiate a higher salary as well. So that 2 years of teaching experience is preferred but not required. If you want, if you don't have those 2 years of experience, you could start volunteering now and kind of emphasize that in your interview, kind of emphasize the fact that you've worked with kids or you worked with young adults or you joined these little programs. But like I said, preferred, not required. Don't let that one freak you out too much. If you're opening up job listings and you keep seeing that again and again and again, I didn't have 2 years of teaching experience when I landed my first job, and so many people I know also didn't have it when they landed their first job. Number 4, you're going to need a clear criminal background check. You can get this from your local government. Basically, China just wants to make sure that you're not a criminal before you go in to the country and get a work visa teaching their children or teaching their adults. So in order to get a clear criminal background check, you're just going to go to your local government and apply for one. Now, there is a caveat to this as well. If you have been in your home country for an extended period of time, then you just need to get this from your home country. But if you were maybe teaching in another country, or maybe you were studying in another country, or maybe you were traveling, if you stayed for longer than 6 months in any other country within the last 5 years, you're also going to need a criminal background check from that country. So keep that in mind. And number 5, you're going to need to have a health check done. Now, this health check is just to make sure that you don't have any contagious diseases upon entering the country. They're literally on the sheet, it says like, do you have leprosy? That's what they're thinking about here. So you can get this done in your home country. They're basically just screening for diseases like tuberculosis or HIV or leprosy. I just went to my local doctor and they were able to do it for me. But do know that a lot of times the school will ask you to do the health check when you arrive in China as well. That's happened to be multiple times. I've done the health check in the States, that's where I'm from. And then when I landed in China, I did it again. But generally, it's either really cheap or the school will cover that cost. And you can find out all the requirements for that health check as well. Okay, let's talk about age now. In order to get a work visa in China, you do have to be within a certain age range. Now, this age starts at 18 and it goes up to 60. Now, there are different types of visas. There are Class A visas and Class B visas. Class A visa basically means that you are a special talent. Like, you are a researcher, you're a scientist. There's something really special about your education or your potential contributions. Most people have a Class B visa. This is just a normal work visa. For Class A visas, there really isn't strict requirements on age. But for Class B, there is. I'm telling you this because maybe if you go online and you search, it might be a little bit confusing. Generally, there isn't like a hard and fast rule. Like if you are 61, you are absolutely not allowed to get a work visa. Because there's Class A and there's Class B, and there are a couple of exceptions as well. But generally, if you are over 60, you're not going to be given a work visa. In my experience, I haven't really met that many people in China who are over 60 anyway. Usually by that age, they're going back to their home country or they're just retired and they don't need a work visa. But I also have had a lot of people ask questions like, I'm 40, I'm 45. Is it going to be really difficult for me to find a job? I will say that generally people tend to hire younger teachers. I talk about this in my burning questions about China video. If you want to check it out, you can. There are timestamps. You can go around to that age area. Generally, schools are looking for someone who's like very, very young, but a lot of people I know are in their 40s and 50s that are teachers. A lot of my coworkers are in that range. Actually, I would say the majority of my coworkers are in that 40 to 50 range. So it's definitely still possible. If it's something you're interested in, why not give it a try? But also know that your likelihood of getting a work visa does decrease the older you get, the closer you get to that cutoff point of 60. Okay, and the last thing you are going to need to get a work visa to teach English in China, I saved this one for the last because it's the most frustrating, it's the most confusing. You're going to need a passport from China's list of English-speaking countries. Now, if you go online and you try to find out what China's list of English-speaking countries contains, it's going to be a little bit nebulous because, to be honest, we normal people don't have access to this list. There's not really a hard and fast official list that is made public to normal people like you and me. But if you go online and you search, you're going to find 7 areas where these passports are given the green light, the go ahead. These 7 areas are the US, the UK, Ireland, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa. Those are the 7. If you Google this, if you search this, these are the 7 that come up. If you have a passport from one of these countries, you're good to go. And what does that mean nationality-wise, race-wise? Doesn't matter. It's just the passport. I have a friend whose coworker is Chinese. She was born in China. She was raised in China. She moved to Australia, ended up getting an Australian passport, came back to China to teach English, and she is considered a foreign teacher. She is considered an international teacher because her passport is Australian. So as long as you have the passport from one of these countries, one of these areas, you're good to go visa-wise. Again, they just have the check mark. And if you have a passport from one of these areas, it's an easy check. Now, like I said, this is not a super official, hard and fast list. For example, there are a lot of places in the world that do speak English as maybe their national language. And there is a little bit of wiggle room and some flexibility with some countries. For example, the Bahamas speaks English and they have a really good relationship with China. They have an open tourist visa policy. So if you are from the Bahamas, you can travel to China without a visa, which is something I can't do as an American. So even though the Bahamas isn't on the really common list of 7 areas, you might still be granted a work visa because they have such good relationships and because they're considered an English-speaking area. However, there are some places that don't have that wiggle room. For example, the Philippines used to be on China's unofficial official list of English-speaking countries, but after the pandemic, they took it off the list. So I had a lot of friends from the Philippines who were teaching English in China before the pandemic, but then things started to change once that policy changed. So the Philippines was taken off the list, and I believe India was also taken off the list, if I'm not mistaken. So if you are from the Philippines, maybe you would encounter that you don't have that much wiggle room or that much flexibility because you were on the list but then were taken off the list in comparison to someone from the Bahamas where it was never fully clearly defined a straight yes or no. If you are from one of those areas that you do speak English, that you have English as maybe your national language or one of your national languages, I would maybe just start reaching out to people and see what happens. I'll link down below an article by Rosetta Stone that lists out different national languages of different countries that might be helpful for you. Like many things in China, there isn't always a hard and fast rule. There are a lot of exceptions to the rule. And so this is one of those areas that can get a little bit confusing. In addition, it can always be changing as well. Like I said, the Philippines used to be on the list and now it's not. So this video is being made in 2025. By next year, this list could have been changed. Maybe some places have been added or maybe some places have been taken away. Okay, so I know for a lot of you that might have been disappointing to hear because maybe your passport is not from one of those easy 7 areas. Does that mean that you're not allowed to work in China? Absolutely not. There are plenty of work opportunities in China that are different from just teaching English. You can still get jobs, get jobs in marketing. You can get jobs in computer science. You can get jobs in a variety of different areas and different fields. In addition, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't teach English. These are the requirements for getting a work visa that is specifically for teaching English. I know a lot of people who got work visas to teach art or to teach music or to teach science, and maybe they added on a couple of casual English classes, or maybe they're teaching science in English, or they're teaching art in English, or they're teaching music in English. So there are still ways, if you really want to be a teacher in China and you're not from one of these 7 areas or one of those gray areas, there's still a possibility for you. You just might have to be a little bit more creative, and it might just take you a little bit longer to find the perfect job and the perfect school for you. Let's finish out this video talking about what you don't need in order to get a work visa. A lot of people have asked me like, okay, I have my bachelor's degree. Do I need to get a master's degree? No, you don't need to have a master's degree in order to get a work visa to teach English in China. Will it help your chances? To be honest, it might help your chances. A lot of people are looking for teachers who are in academia or they are educated. So if you have a master's degree, definitely bring that up in the interview. Definitely talk about that on your resume. It could help your chances of landing a job. Is it a necessary requirement though? No. The next thing you don't need is a higher level TEFL or TESOL certificate. We already talked about this a little bit. Do you need a 200-hour TEFL certificate? No. Now, the master's might help your chances of landing a job. Will a higher TEFL certificate help your chances of landing a job? In my experience, in going to interviews and being friends with recruiters, this really isn't going to affect your chances at all. So my advice is, don't waste your time, don't waste your money. Just get 120 hours and you will be good to go. Like I said, I will link those 2 companies I mentioned earlier. I used ITTT and I really like them. I think the code will actually give you a discount as well. And I also really like the World TEFL Institute. I think that one looks really promising as well, and it's really cost effective. Do you need a CELTA degree or a Delta degree? You might have also heard about these degrees. No, these are not necessary for getting a job, a work visa. Could these help your chances? Actually, yeah, they might. A lot of people do consider this to be almost like a master's because CELTA and Delta is really a higher level certificate for teaching EFL and teaching ESL. So it could help your chances of landing a job. Is it necessary though? No. And if you want me to make a video going into CELTA versus Delta and how effective it is, I can definitely do that if you like. Just leave a comment down below. I do also want to mention a little snag in the system. Technically, if you have a teaching license, you don't really need a TEFL certificate. But in my opinion, I would still advise you to get the TEFL certificate. One of my coworkers had a New York State teaching license, which is a very difficult teaching license to get, but he didn't have a TEFL certificate. His teaching license covered the TEFL certificate requirement, at least back then. This was probably 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago. At the time, he didn't need to get his TEFL certificate because it covered it, but the company was constantly like harping on him to get the TEFL certificate because they didn't really understand that the teaching license was better than the TEFL certificate. And it caused a lot of hiccups in the system because every time he would go to reapply for his visa, when people are looking at the checklist, they didn't see the TEFL certificate, and it caused him a lot of headache and it caused him a lot of problems. So in my opinion, even if you have a teaching certificate, I would just go ahead and get the TEFL. To be honest, the TEFL is not that difficult to get. I got mine in just a couple of days. You just watch some videos online and fill out some things. It's a really simple certificate to get. And because everyone is just going down that checklist, it's gonna make your life a lot easier if you just have it. So that's my advice. Just go ahead and get it. Just get 120. You don't need any more than that. Call it a day. It will help you out a lot. I hope that answered all of your questions. I hope that covered everything. If there's something that I didn't cover, if you still have a question, leave a question in the comments down below. If there's something else that you would like me to make a video on, for example, you'd like me to talk about CELTA versus Delta, or you'd like me to talk more about TEFL certificates and TEFL companies, definitely let me know. I also am planning on making a video about how to do well at your job interview. I've been friends with a lot of recruiters, so I know what they're looking for. That maybe would help you land a job once you start looking. You can also check out more videos on the channel about how to live in China, what life in China is like, or how to be a better teacher. But that is all for today. I will see you next time.